I'm Dewey, TRON. I'm the moderator for tonight's event, and welcome to DC Shorts. And this panel, thank you, is about music and film, or movies. So can we introduce everyone here?
Hi, I'm Phil Cook. I'm a local producer-director. I've made 8 independent feature films over the past 20-some years that have been on the Sci-Fi Channel, Cinemax, Showtime, HBO, Hulu, Netflix, Amazon, something like that.
Wow.
Awesome. Hi. Just helping you with the mic. Okay. My name is JP. I'm a composer. I've done 2 feature films. I know one of them is on Tubi, so I've got a bit of catching up to Phil to do, but you know, we're getting there.
Hi everybody, I'm Andrew Stainer, musician all my life. Been doing music for films the past 3 years, so I have more catching up to do with these gentlemen.
And lady.
And lady.
Well, here
Welcome.
I am. Yes, so I am a composer, singer, voice actress. I have produced short films, and my favorite thing in the world is to create jingles. I did that for many years.
Are there any that we know and may recognize?
I did, it was like for a huge European pharmaceutical kind of company, and it was Carmen and the Habanera, and then, but sync that to the ballet dancers in the ads movement. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. So let's like go back in time, but like bring it in the present. So that was fun. I did some, I think it was Mercedes stuff, you know, the classic, you know, the strings, like the classic, you know, like very sort of like action, you know, like, and sort of, yeah. So that stuff, the good old soap commercials, which is more, you know, how do I say that? The seductive strings. Yeah, so that's a different kind of thing. So yeah, I feel like I've been around in the jingle department.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that's
good. Something you can't say every day. I've been around the jingle department.
Very nice.
And that's cool, the way that you describe
around, you know.
as musicians, we're like figuring out how to emote these things through sound, and it's like, okay, this is what I want. I want romantic. I want action. You know, it's just like pharmaceutical. Like what do you sell? It's just like, how do we capture that in music? You know. And we always refer to, like, you know, people were inspired by. I don't know, like, how did you make the transition into going from a musician to doing film? Like, how does that connect together? You can.
How did I make the transition of going into film? I started out in the visual effects business. So back in the 80s, when things were still shot on film, we were doing MTV IDs, back when MTV was actually cool. I don't know if you guys remember any of these classic things, breathing M's and little clay kids getting run over by cars making splatty logos and hairy elephants and just weird stuff. I always wanted to make feature films, so that sort of took the visual effects and got into feature films and did independent financing and that kind of thing.
So what about, like, your involvement with, like, scoring film? Like, how did you start developing that part? I mean, as a director, we have to, like, learn everything and know how to do everything? Is this one of the things you had to pick up?
Absolutely, because nobody knew anything. It's really sad, but I was the most skilled and knowledgeable person on the set. But when it came to music, we actually, there was a gentleman, well, it's funny you should say that. It was a disaster, quite frankly. The first time we had some people just score music in advance. When I finally heard, it's like, I can't use this. But at the same time, I also didn't give them an opportunity to see the footage, right? So they were part of the shoot. So we ditched that score, and we contracted an original score by a guy named Dave Bartley. And that was back when the emulator had just come out, if anyone knows anything about it. It was like one of the early synthesizers, and we were all amazed, because like you didn't have to play things with live and keyboard. You could actually sample them and play them. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, everybody and the brother has GarageBand and the ability to do this, but back in, you know.
It's really new.
Oh, yeah.
Revolutionary
space age,
technology.
right? It was awesome. And he did a beautiful job. Of course, he had the advantage of actually seeing the film. But yeah, he scored all these pieces, and this film, which was all done locally with local musicians and local actors, ended up on the Sci-Fi Channel back in like the year it came out.
Wow.
And it was so great when we did our second film, I went straight to him. And at that time, I really loved the sound of Danny Elfman and the score he did for Batman and Beetlejuice, all this
All the
crazy
timbre and
orchestration.
stuff, yeah.
And so I would just say, you know, I'd find sample tracks and we would rough them and say, I want something like that in the style of that. And he would do his own thing, but it still evoked the qualities of
Okay.
that crazy, fun Danny Elfman vibe.
So, are you a musician too, or are you like someone that's like, oh, I want this, and you know the taste of how you put things together?
I can't play an instrument, but
okay, I was
know
gonna say
music.
it almost sounded like I was
Yeah.
asking if you were playing music.
Because I think I'm a pretty good
But the
music
process
editor.
of putting music into film and like
Oh, yeah.
getting
No,
different.
I love it. And
collaborators.
I have a collection of probably 300 movie scores, so I know movie scores intimately. I know the composers. I mean, going back to the 40s even, and just seeing the evolution of how music was so. When Jerry Goldsmith and Johnny Williams, before it became Jonathan Williams, came out on the scene in the late 60s, all of a sudden movie music wasn't this sort of traditional, you know, violins and piano thing. It was really getting weird and abstract and very specific. I mean, if you think about the score from Planet of the Apes, which Jerry Goldsmith did, great score. Listen to it today, it still gives you goosebumps. Very abstract.
Did Danny Elfman take over the new one, right?
Oh yeah, he did. Yeah, 30 years later.
Yeah.
You know, I don't even remember that score. I'm sure it's good. It's probably completely different. But yeah, in the 60s, you got into these really abstract, interesting, experimental. It was sort of like more avant-garde symphony. You know, where you're like bonging on something instead of having
Yeah.
melodies.
Philip Glass and like that kind
Oh
of.
yeah, Philip Glass is another
yeah,
one.
yeah.
Yeah, just beautiful. All
That
those
kind of era.
repetitions. Yeah.
Well, there's so many ways like that music can come into a film. Like you think of it ahead of time and you put it in, or as a placeholder, or like, you know, there are people who are making music, just building a stock of things, like you just, whatever you feel in the moment, or like you watch the film on screen and you get ideas, but like, how does everyone work here? Like, is it, you know, a combination of all those things, or do you have more of a specific focus where you have to sit and watch the film and make it in real time, and or do you like make stuff that you feel in the moment and, I don't know, build it up, use it for later?
I would say it depends on a deadline. If we've got 2 weeks to score it, then it's all right then and there. Like I'm sitting in the chair, I'm writing as I'm watching, I'm editing as I'm watching, and you go through it. If I've got 4 weeks, 2 months to score the feature, then I'm watching it, I'm walking around, I'm thinking about it. I write a theme here, I buff it out there, I watch it with a picture, and I see if it works, and then I spend more time doing it. So I would say, like, if it's crunch time, then,
You got to focus on
yeah, absolutely.
tailoring it to the piece that you're working
Yeah.
on.
Do you find for commercial projects, the more time you have, the more annoying the job becomes?
Yes. Absolutely.
And then that there is, in brevity is efficiency. It's like, you got 4 days to do this. Boom, got it. Now you've got 3 weeks. Now I'm going to be tortured by this with version number 3.765.
Yeah.
You don't even remember which version that was anymore at a certain point. It's
Yeah.
like, no, I gave you what I had, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that. I think a deadline, I mean, I built a reputation for working very fast.
Yeah.
But at scale, with the quality that you would expect, right? So if you give me 2 months, I might get fidgety. I'll still work on it for that amount of time, but if you give me 1 week, for a commercial project, I'm going to knock it out of the park.
Yeah.
So I think that, back to your question, is, sitting there and actually watching the film is probably the first place I start. And I don't necessarily play along with it, but I'll watch, I'll write, I'll listen back, because, we were talking about the samples, right? I'm going to hear strings and percussion and drums and trumpet or whatever, right away. And it's going to sound pretty good as soon as I put it down. So, you get a pretty good sense pretty fast of, the sound you're going for.
Is there, time that you just feel inspired and write stuff completely out of thin air and save for later, or is that usually the workflow with?
I mean, I'd say it happens.
Watching a film, or is there any more time to do that? Because you're sometimes one project after another and take on as much work.
Yeah, I'd say it happens, you know, or for instance, let's say I was writing something and then, I go take a break, I'm out to lunch, I'm like 10 minutes down the road from the studio, and it's in my head now. And I'm like, oh, shit, I gotta speed back or try to capture it on the voice recorder or something like that because then I'm like, oh, this will work. And so it comes anywhere, but like when there's a deadline, it'll be there when I'm at the computer.
You know, to your point about writing music for some indefinite project in the future, there's a great documentary on Amazon about the music of James Bond. And the guy who wrote the theme to James Bond is named Monty Norman. And he wrote that bum ba bum 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 bum, that thing. It was for an Indian film, and he did it with a zittar. And he just, I don't know what to do with it. And it sat there forever. And all of a sudden, Albert Broccoli, the producer, says, I need a score, and I hate what this guy's doing. You got to give me something. I got to have something by Tuesday. So he takes this Indian thing, and he goes, well, but, and he just goes crazy, right? And holy
Yeah,
crap, that's
absolutely.
the most famous theme of any movie ever. And I highly recommend this documentary if you love music. It's on Amazon Prime.
What's
They
it called?
talk about
What's it called?
the music of James Bond. It
Okay.
covers like 60 years of all the composers, and they interview them, the styles, and what is coming in vogue and what's coming out of vogue, and when it's synthesized, and then the theme songs with, and they got Paul McCartney, and then they have Shirley Bassey. If you're into film music, it is awesome. It is, and it's a great documentary.
Right.
It was a great documentary itself, but if you're into music, it's mind-numbing. And if you look at those scores over 60 years, every one of them, even when they're not great, they're still pretty impressive. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, I didn't know. That's great. I'm excited about seeing it because, thinking about James Bond, it's like there's the theme song, and then they always have like a guest singer coming in, and they write to me, like a hit song as the opener. Of the
But they're
film
not
with the
always hit
graphics.
songs. And,
No, I mean,
all of that,
I can
yeah.
hear a specific style, like what their taste is,
Yeah.
and who they're bringing in on the project.
Yeah,
but it's just
yeah.
like interesting the approach of producing this intro sequence,
Which is fascinating,
which is
too.
not like a score. It's just like a one-offer.
And culturally, when you think about what the world has gone through in those 60 years, right? So the style of music is adapted from the 60s to the 70s to the 80s to the 90s to now to the most recent one, and it's really fascinating.
And it's funny that you mentioned, having a hit song at either the beginning or the end. It makes me think of like Disney, right, where they would have some rock artist or pop artist basically do one of the main themes as like a 2-minute song in the credits, right? But now you think about something like the Barbie movie, where it's kind of the opposite, where Billie Eilish
Sorry.
did that. She just did a song that was used in it, and then they took material from that and spread it into the score.
You're talking about the James Bond film? Or you're talking
No,
He
about
just
no,
said the
Barbie.
Barbie film. I actually
Okay, I
haven't seen
forgot
it yet,
she did.
but that's an interesting. I've seen him take like old songs and just like tear it apart and like repurpose it for this trailer. And I don't know. I guess they sold out.
Mark
and,
Ronson,
they can use
everybody.
whatever.
Which is
What's
who's
that?
great. Mark Ronson is amazing. Like he's an amazing songwriter. I think like Barbie, the elephant in the room. I mean, this is like I don't know what to say. I don't like the movie, but I appreciate the like effort and the huge marketing campaign around it. It's brilliant. It's just product placement to the and the score. Yes, I mean good job. I think it's some the songs written for the movie are better than I don't remember anything else. I think I remember the songs. Like the actual individual singles.
Yep.
And like the body, like the body, whatever. Like that's great. Like that's awesome. Like that's awesome. And I'm like, yes, I remember that. And sort of right in my head, whatever the whole Billy, like the press. I'm like, yeah, that's like. Oof.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
So like that's sort of like I like that they got in like a lot of emotions, but through the songs. So I think rather through the artists that contributed. But I wonder how much the movie in itself would have like lifted without that. So I'm thinking the singles are superior to the movie in this case.
I think it's all about keeping
Maybe. Is
that
that
crazy
controversial?
energy up, right?
No.
But the music is really where all the energy from that picture comes from, right? It isn't, I'd say it's almost wall-to-wall music, that film, right? Pretty much.
I don't know.
I don't
I feel like the
know.
songs are more like I don't know. I feel like the song, without the songs, I'm not sure the movie would have been so
Oh, I agree.
engaging. Like, I
Absolutely.
think without
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. I think the movie has a music to thank rather than the other.
You think
know,
it was
like,
intentional that they were like, all right, we got these hit makers that are going to attract this amount of people, and like,
Yeah.
let's make a decision around that instead of like, serving the story. Like, let's,
No, I think they did both.
it's a kind of a balance.
I think you're looking at finding, people that you're going to sell music to. But a picture like that, you've got to keep the energy level up all the time, right? And so even though you're going to have some rises and falls to give the audience a break to recover, the energy is coming from the music. And regardless of whether, it's Marilyn Manson or, or Billie Eilish, you're making a choice of trying to keep that energy going, all that manic, crazy, positive Barbiness. So
I actually haven't seen the film yet, so I'm just.
you have to see it, regardless of what you
It-
think about it.
I mean, is
just
there any
as a
scoring in that, or is it
cultural-
all like,
Yeah, I think there
pop
is some.
musician, like,
Yeah, they got some
score. There's
adapting it
some
into a
score.
type of score?
Yeah, they had some underscore.
Yeah, they did, I believe.
And actually, that brings up a good, question, for you, Phil, is, the use of popular songs versus the score. Like, I know that they spent money to have 3 or 4 major pop hits written and then synced and then licensed, and then also, I don't know if they were able to do a buyout or something like that, but, that's a choice in advance. They're like, we want pop songs as opposed to score, right?
That must have been right. I mean, because
Yeah.
of the marketing and the type of movie.
Yeah, I
the
think
type
so,
of
like-
trademark that Barbie is.
Well,
right? So
those
we're
pictures are all package deals through agencies, and agencies have relationships with composers and directors and actors and writers. So they're thinking about the big picture to maximize the profit across the whole spectrum and all these different. So yes, it's not just the creative. Hopefully you're giving your people enough creative freedom to make the film they want to do with the understanding that you're going to use these people, right, because they're under contract. And that's going to be plugged into the machine. And quite frequently, a lot of those films fail for artificial reasons. But in this particular case, this one knocked it out of the park. I mean, whatever you think about the movie, you got to see it because it's just
Yeah,
a
yeah.
cultural.
Can't miss that.
Yeah, you have to just to know
Yeah.
what it's all
Whether
about.
you like it or not or whatever. Yeah.
I mean, in my opinion, I went in there thinking I was going to hate it, and I did not hate it. So that, to me, was already, I guess my expectations were so low. But no, I mean, I had fun. I need to see it a second time because I'm not entirely thematically quite clear exactly what the messages were,
Right.
besides Bye Barbie.
Yeah.
I was only one thing, like, there was only one moment, I'm like, wow, that monologue. I don't know, everybody probably knows what I'm talking about, but I can't name even, I just like the monologue about like, well, you can't be too skinny, but you can't be too fat. Like,
Yeah, it
they
was a
come
great
around like,
Yeah.
yeah, and then it made me really depressed. So I was more like, I was sad. That movie made me sad.
I have to confess, when I heard they were going to make Barbie into a movie, I thought, wow, what a challenge. I mean, how do you, I mean, there's an easy way to make it, which is basically, oh, I'm cute little Barbie, and just have some basic little adventure. But how do you make it where it actually technically or theoretically has something to say about the culture and whether or not it's a story, you can get involved with just on a, just a storytelling level, and you do have empathy for Barbie as she goes along in this adventure. And because when I thought about, hey, Phil, somebody wants you to write this Barbie movie, I go, I don't think I could do it. I'm intrigued. I was really challenged by that.
No, but I know.
And I thought actually
No,
Greta
like, where do
Gerwig
you
did a
start?
pretty good job with elevating, I mean, it's a story about a 60-year-old plastic toy, right? And she gave it a lot of depth and cultural relevance. Whether you like the picture or not, there's a lot going on in that movie, besides the music and the theme and the fact that it's all packaged through Hollywood. It really epitomizes what is going on in the industry right now in a successful way. Success, I'm going to go back to financial, but.
Well, I didn't actually expect to hear any about the producing industry side of it, where I thought I was actually going to be talking to a lot of musicians, so it's like, this is like a whole surprise topic for
Right.
me here. But it's okay. No, I'm learning a lot. I was just like, wow, I never thought I'm just a creative and
Well,
I
it
make
is.
music, so,
But it is part of the music, and the music is
Yeah.
a part of the package. I mean, when
How do we fit into
a
that
Batman
as
movie
artists?
is made, Hans Zimmer comes on the ticket, right? So
Yes, absolutely.
That picture, let's call Hans and see who wants to do, no, he's already, he looks at his schedule, yeah, he's already built in, he's already getting his fee. So that stuff comes in the mainstream industry, not that I'm in that by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, that stuff all
Well,
comes prepackaged.
From your perspective of what you do, I mean, is there any advice you can give to people who are composers to like get into, the circle, or not like in the mind of a person who's putting projects together?
I'm not going to be it's hard, right? I've known people who have been composers for years. There is no easy solution. There's so many amazing stock libraries out there. So much amazing, particularly out of Eastern Europe, the stuff. I mean, I see these things and what it costs to license them. I'm terrified for somebody trying to get in and become a composer right now. Actually, I'd be terrified for anybody trying to make independent film on any level right now. It is so hard.
If I can
Yeah,
interject,
sure.
because I'm probably the closest to a beginner here.
Yeah.
So, yes, it is difficult, I suppose, to make a living at it, but it's not difficult to get into it.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
The 48-hour film festivals, the 72-hour film festivals, people would love to hear some original music. So there's a good starting point there. One other piece of advice from a beginner is make sure that your filmmaker has a picture lock before you start really digging into the composition, because if you start and have an edit and it's not the complete edit and you write it, you compose it all out and then they extend the film by 5 minutes, everything has to be shifted.
I wish I could say that wasn't a pipe dream, my friend.
You were saying it doesn't change.
Like,
Okay.
no, it's, I think chasing an edit is something you just have to accept and hope for picture lock, like hope and pray, like if it happens, that's amazing. But, you should expect like a revision to have some sort of micro change. I mean, let's say it's all done and they sell it, right? And now the distribution company that bought
Wants
it,
cuts.
they're going to make some cuts. They're going to stick on new logos. So you just got to hope that it's in good hands when you hit it to them. And I remember the last feature I did, I kept trying to put a string hit on the main actor's eyebrows. He would like squint his face. I was like, oh,
You need
this
to
is
have, like,
perfect for
a stat.
little
Oh, yeah.
thing, right? And I remember having to move that hit like 8 times
Yeah.
because of all the changes. And I was just
3
like,
frames this way, 4 frames that
yeah,
way.
absolutely. At this point, I don't care if it hits. Like,
The agony.
Well, how do you deal with, like, say, big changes? I mean, like, I've had that problem where it's, like, score, and they're like, oh, the edit's different now. I'm like, oh, crap. Like, that's going to be a lot to move around. But then I had to figure, like, to break it up into sections in order to make it more module. And
I think the smaller edits are actually kind of manageable. Like, I know I gripe about moving that little hit 8 times, but it was so easy to do. It just took some time to do it. What becomes a problem is when they say, I don't think this fits for the scene or the movie.
And you just put this whole time into this
we need to
piece.
rewrite, or we need to extend by a certain amount of time. That's when it's like, really getting tricky.
But the plus is that if it's a cue that they just totally don't like, you're like, oh, great, I have something else to add to my library
Yeah, absolutely.
for potential future
Yeah.
use.
Do you edit your own music into the show, or are you just given tracks and then you're at the mercy?
So right now I'm at the stage where I'm either editing, usually using Logic, or maybe Audition to edit the.
I've done both.
Okay.
Where I've mixed my own score into the the dialogue and stuff, and actually kind of placed it. But I've also done it where I send stems off to like a sound mixer.
Okay.
And for those of you who don't know, stems are like you have all the string recordings. That's one track. You have all the brass recordings. That's one track. And generally, it's split up into cues. So you've got all the strings for this one music, 2 minutes. All the music for this section here. And then you give it to the sound editor or the re-recording mixer, and they're the ones who are going to give you the full length. Here's all the music in 1 hour-long chunk or whatever.
Oh, like just
Slap it
balanced.
in. That's
Yeah.
the whole movie right there.
I've done both, I think, because sometimes I've had existing music that has been just cut and like used. I'm whatever. Like I never had any scruples. I think I'm not sure how you feel about it, but I never cared. I'm like, once I do something and it's recorded and it's produced,
Yeah.
done. It's out.
Especially if it's
Get out
work
of the
for
system,
hire. Like
Yeah.
if I sell it, if I don't own the music, then I'm kind of like that. Now, as I'm writing it, I might feel a little more protective of like, oh, I
Yeah, I
had
was
it go
gonna ask
this
about
way, I wanted to hit this here, I wanted to do that. But like 3 months later, I'm on another project and I find out that they made a cut there and switched it around. I'm like, okay, well, update the cue sheet and, you know, send it in, but I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta let the like this little, you know, bird in the cage, and then you just
Yeah, exactly,
whatever.
exactly.
And so, but I think it's I don't know, it feels healthy to be like, you can't hold on to
Just a flow. I
you
don't know.
sit on,
You know,
Yeah.
for me, like sometimes when you write a song, it's like you fall in love with like a melody, and it's like, oh, that's not good enough for my theme. You know, maybe I'll save it for a better one, and then you just like, you know,
yeah, no, that,
end
that,
up hoarding
that's the
like
pain.
melodies.
I don't like
Yeah.
that. No, I don't like that. It's like,
But
oh,
you're just
no, what do I
flowing
do
with it.
this?
You're an instrument. It's-
Yeah.
You know, it'd be, just from going back to music history a little bit, Ridley Scott, when he made Alien, contracted Jerry Goldsmith to do the score for Alien. He didn't use Jerry Goldsmith's score. He ended up using pieces of score from a film called Hitchcock. And then when Ridley Scott made the movie Legend and had Jerry Goldsmith, if you've seen this film, this Tom Cruise fantasy
Yeah.
film, they sacked the entire score by Jerry Goldsmith, the symphony score, and replaced it with Tangerine Dream,
Tangerine.
an electronic score. And having seen both pictures, I have to say, no, don't get me wrong, I love Jerry Goldsmith. Talk about having to let something go and how painful that is, particularly when you're
Yeah,
Jerry
I felt it
Goldsmith.
like
right?
Yeah.
When I heard the Jerry Goldsmith score, it's like, it's a good score, but the Tangerine Dream score, for some
Yeah.
funky reason, works better in the picture.
Hey, if he got paid and
Oh, I'm sure
you
you
know,
got paid.
It's all about the money.
Yeah,
It's all
right.
about the money.
It's a jingle.
yeah, right.
Jingle
The
Bell
one
Industry.
catch to
That's the
that.
song, by the way. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm sorry, I don't want
No,
to,
you're
like,
good.
not mine, but like, sorry, yeah.
I think the one catch to that is if I get my whole score replaced, like I get it back. If I sell it in advance, right, it's a work for hire, and the stipulation is like I write the score, you're gonna own it. If you decide not to use a single note, you can't just like use that for your next film or whatever. Like we can talk and relicense it or something like that, but I'm not cool with like I'm not using any.
You know, one other amazing legendary score that got fired, 2001, Stanley Kubrick's film, had a score contracted by a guy named Alexander North, who had done all these films, Ice Station Zebra and all these different things. He sacked it and just went purely with symphony and, you know, all the Blue
that-
Danube and all this. He got the Ligeti, all these weird, freaky, abstract, avant-garde symphony. But there's all pre-made stuff. So I have heard that score too, which is actually kind of cool. It's on YouTube. You can find these things. But I get it. I completely get all the reasons why they got, man, that must have hurt. But at the same time, it's like, can't argue with the picture. It works,
Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
that's
Right.
exactly right.
One is a
Yeah.
slave to the vision of whoever has the last word, right, for the project. But I think, like, going back to jingles, it's such a cutthroat thing. And I'm like, maybe will I ever go back? I don't know. But, like, once you've been there, it's a really dark place. Because, like, it's mini, it's even worse than worse, what am I talking about? But, like, it's shorter than a short film.
Yeah.
So you're like literally like, how do we sell this trademark, this product, or this service in like less than 15 seconds? Usually, maybe I used to do 30 seconds, but they use 10. So like usually it's like it's an eternity.
Do
It's
you
like-
ever listen to other jingles and be like, oh, that was a good one? Like, liberty, liberty, liberty. You know, like, I hear that and get stuck in my head. Like, damn it, I
Underestimate the value of a good
Thanks for
jingle.
that.
man.
That's in my head all
It
day
sucks,
now.
but it's like somehow in your head. And you just know it.
I'm surprised they don't do more jingles today because I can still sing jingles from when I was a kid. There's still
Yeah, I have jingles
earworms
in my head for like the
and nobody's doing that
After
right
these messages, we'll be right
Did you
back.
rewind?
Red Robin.
Hey,
You know, but like,
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm surprised they don't do more of it now.
I think it's a psychological, you know, it's such an impact. It's like cultural. Oh my gosh. And like,
I think people caught on too now, so you can't get them cheap. Like I'm sure the guy who wrote the
I was never cheap.
Well,
I'm telling you.
that's awesome.
Uh-huh.
And I know some
Yeah.
people.
But like,
Fox Fanfare, $100.
Yeah.
$100 buyout,
Yeah.
work for hire, no royalties, done, gone.
Forever. But like that's the story.
Yeah.
And like must have been love, but it's over now. What are they called? Roxette, right? And help me with it. What's the film? Must have been love. Pretty Woman, I think.
Oh,
I just know that song.
Whisper on my pillow, leave a whisper on my
I don't think that's pretty good.
So it's some of the and regardless, like, so it was something about the musicians who recorded the strings for the tune literally got like $50 because they were like students, and they like wrote the like, yeah, thanks, I take the one-off payment, and then it's like millions of dollars.
Yeah, it's hard to watch.
After that, and it's like that's painful. I think it's
Yeah.
really like when you just like, oh yeah, if you cash is not gonna do this movie doesn't sound like it's gonna be a hit. It's like, yeah, worldwide, like. So I think that's the
But that's usually
that's the risk.
the
for once there
unicorn.
is.
Yeah,
'cause
unicorn.
Most of the stuff you're doing is like, that'll never go anywhere. And then all of a sudden you realize, holy crap, that was my string thing on the James Bond theme? Ugh.
Yeah.
I had a choice, $50 today or royalties in the future. And you know what royalties in the future are worth in Hollywood? Generally
Right.
zero. But there you go.
And to add
Yeah,
on
yeah,
to the advice I would give to someone starting out is find a lawyer before you find an agent.
Oh, I'm like,
Like we're talking, yeah, right. We're talking about
Yeah.
like
yeah.
2 or 3 lines in a contract that prevent you from cashing out on anything. You can't legally say that you wrote it unless you put it in the contract. It's a huge, crazy thing that a lot of people get screwed over with. Especially young people. You hear about it all the time for some of the, more in like the record label kind of like rock artists, pop artists, that kind of stuff. They used to get screwed over all the time. But in film, composers are usually a little more careful, but be extra careful.
You're kind of scaring me.
Sorry.
So you do music.
I do music, and I don't really
No, I
want to
don't
care
wanna-
about that stuff. I just
Yeah.
want to
I
make
know.
stuff, and
Yeah.
but it's just like scary to think, oh, there's all this other business stuff, and
I would-
people are going to
yeah.
steal your
But it's
work
like a
and
crude
take advantage of you.
business.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I would
It's
say
just-
like,
Yeah.
prepare for the worst. Don't expect it necessarily, but
I mean, what kind of budget do I have to expect to like get a lawyer to like protect me in my work?
get a template
There's
contract.
probably a template contract. You
Just
can
if you want
change things
to
up.
start, you probably get it for less than $2,000. I know it's a
Okay.
lot. I know. Listen, I get
Yeah, that's
it.
what I was getting at.
But
It's like, how much does it cost?
It's going to cost more to try to get your royalties back.
I could
in
buy a whole
3
computer
years.
with GarageBand for
Yeah,
Yeah,
less
it's just,
than that.
you're a beginner. I don't know if you're thinking about like, oh, I better get a $2,000 contract. It's
Well,
like, you're like, I want to get this pedal. I want to get this guitar.
Yeah.
That's what you're thinking about all your money's going to.
I mean, I'm happy to send. I'll send you my
Yeah,
template.
that's-
Like, I'm happy to do that
Good,
as
good.
well. It's like I spent the money on it, and I really don't care. It's good. And
Mhm.
nowadays, you can use ChatGPT to like double check. I think ChatGPT passed the bar at like 85th percentile or something like that. So,
Oh, wow.
You can tweak it once you've got a really solid template.
Well, we're striking now. Speaking of AI and.
Yeah,
But
Yeah.
You're talking about being afraid from the legal side, like AI.
totes.
Just like, being a creative, you usually don't like have enough mind space to like have any like business and
Business
marketing stuff
acumen.
occupy it, and you're just like, that's too much to think about. You just want to be
Yeah.
artistic and
I would
flow.
They're
never
ripe
say
for
all-
exploitation.
Yeah, I know.
absolutely. I would say off projects, though.
That's why we're having this discussion.
Like in between the projects, let's say when I'm on a project, I'm like 90% music, art, like line it up, and technical and stuff like that. When I'm not on a project, I'm like 70 to 80% business, legal, networking, mundane tasks that are not musical or exciting at all.
A lot of admin.
A lot of admin, because you got to keep track of, every piece. Like for instance, if I'm sending tracks back and forth to the director for a cue, I'm keeping track of every single file I send you, because if one of those gets out, like that's IP, that's music, that's something to keep track of. And let's say there's 10 files or 10 revisions for every single cue, and we've got 150 stems for each cue or something like that. Like it gets crazy for the number of individual files, and then what's going to happen is it's going to end up on TikTok. Someone's going to speed it up, and it's not going to be picked up by, algorithms
How do you police
anyway,
that?
so-
Like
you don't. Like,
it
it's just
how do you
out
know
there.
about it?
Yeah,
Just-
yeah.
You just don't. You hope. Like, if it gets on something like YouTube, like their detection algorithms are stellar, so they can find out. But
Can you put your music into those detection queues?
I can do it for some things. Like, I can go through a DSP,
I'm sorry, DSP.
a digital streaming provider or something like that, or
Okay.
distributed streaming provider. It's like if I want to put music on Spotify, I go through DSP, right? And that'll also go to YouTube and YouTube content ID
thing.
and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But
And so that puts it in the algorithm.
It puts it in
so,
the algorithm.
So it would be
But-
detected.
But I can't do that if I do a work for hire and we say, okay,
Right.
you don't have a soundtrack license.
Do you have to pay for that? To get it into the
I don't have to
algorithm?
pay to upload.
No.
Well, I pay like a yearly.
So you basically say, this is my copyrighted music, and it goes, okay, we're going to track this for you.
Yes.
So when anybody puts it on their own thing, they're going to say, hey, we're flagged this ad, which is
absolutely.
your piece of your track.
But I can't do that for every single piece. Like I've
Okay.
done ads and stuff where like I signed the rights away or whatever, and I got a payout, so I can't go upload that to Spotify, without getting a license or something like that.
Yeah,
even
yeah,
if
yeah.
I want that tracked.
And at this point, though, it's your word against theirs unless somebody comes after you. So if you did
Yeah.
take that work for hire and posted it, depending on what it is, odds are probably it'll never come back to haunt you, but it could come back.
It
to
could,
haunt you.
and
Yeah.
for instance, YouTube, like if you've got a video and you've got a song in it, it'll put a tag on the bottom of the video that says music in this video, right? And it's like you're just tagging other people's videos with your soundtrack that you signed away. Can't always do that.
Now, a question to that. So say your track ends up on some guy's video that got, 100,000 views, and he monetized it and made $50 or whatever it is. Do they have a mechanism of getting that money to you? Or
A
no?
long-winded, painful mechanism.
Okay.
It would take forever to register, approve, make it happen. Either have it taken down, reach out, have
Like taking it
royalties
down,
distributed.
you can do. I'm
You
just
can do
not-
that pretty quickly. You can
Yeah,
be like, oh, that's
yeah,
mine,
yeah.
take it down.
Yeah.
But to say this is the music, I wrote it, this is what it's connected to, this is who the other rights
Yeah,
holders
yeah,
are on
yeah,
this
yeah.
music, it's such a nightmare to even think about. So,
And the amount of money you're talking about is probably so insignificant anyway.
right.
That's what I'm thinking. Like you got to weigh the. I think at least 2 jingles for something if they're out on YouTube. I don't get anything like from what I'm saying, but I don't bother. Like it feels like I got paid, good pay, and I'm on to the next. Like it's sort of like you got to weigh your pick your
Yeah,
battles and
absolutely.
like that kind of stuff. And that's unfortunate because you shouldn't have to. You should always be like, that's my work.
Right.
That should be protected regardless. But it's not. Yeah, it's hard and like. I think I sound a little bit bitter,
Me
like in
too.
general,
I was-
right?
is that,
like,
that's
I'm
not
sorry,
really
cool.
cool. I'm like, I'm
like-
sorry, everybody.
I'm a little
There's a lot of other
jaded.
stuff to deal with.
Well, you-
Don't
I'm
get
sorry.
into film music or
Yeah, right.
scoring, go to college,
I was going to
do
ask on the
something
end there, I
else.
was like, hey, how
I
do you
gotta
feel
tell you,
about
you're
moving
so-
forward after
Become an
doing all this?
electrician or a plumber.
No, it's really great. Everyone should
Something
do
that
it.
everybody needs.
Yeah.
Lawyer.
The
Yeah.
lawyer.
We don't need
That's
any
what it's
more.
about in music.
No, because when you do have those moments though where it works and you don't have to think about it, it makes it all worth it. Like when you are sitting in a theater and you hear 28 speakers playing music that you wrote at that volume and that fullness of sound, like you can't replace that feeling.
Well, that's
It's incredible. And
Yeah,
it's
that's what I was
like-
going to ask. Like, how do you still find joy in it, like when you do the thing you like for a living and then going through this process?
At the end
That's
of
because
it,
you turn off your cognitive brain and you wallow in your
Exactly. You turn
creative-
off the left, you turn on the right, and you're just
And then you go, man, that's
listening.
amazing. That was
Yeah.
totally worth losing 4 months worth of work and can't pay my mortgage.
Absolutely. 'Cause you
On
can-
and off button. No,
Yeah.
but like, I think how I've done it, I don't know if this could help anybody, but, and any, poor soul with talent and determination. Those two things, I think, like, you gotta be, most of all, determination and some kind of foolish belief, and they're like, oh, I'm good. Like, you gotta have some kind of foundation of like, and I don't think a lot of people tell you, you know what, you're the next Hans Zimmer. Like, no one
Never.
told me that or ever,
Never.
and I didn't even say, like, are you kidding?
Says
But like,
no one.
I think my thing was like, say yes to opportunities you think you basically like, I don't think I could do this, it's gonna be half-assed. But like, I think it's sort of, I think I have, in the beginning, I think I was winging it. I've been winging it for many years. And like, I literally took way, like, a part above my, like, I can't do that. I'm like, sure. Like, you want to do like, yeah. I'm like, string orchestra, sure, man. 180 of it, yeah, sure, fine. Like, yeah, no problem. It's like, oh my God. Like, I had to call somebody, call a friend. So it's been like, I don't know if you have that, but like, and I think it's important because it's important to challenge yourself. So it's better in a way. I mean, don't be too foolish. Like, if you actually don't have the techniques to score something huge, a lot, maybe don't, but rather say yes. Like, if you feel like, I think so, and you just need something a little extra, like, you can probably call that friend or like do something.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's important to not doubt yourself.
Gotta be a little delusional.
You gotta be a little crazy, you know?
Sounds like filmmaking too.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
so-
absolutely.
It's like, is there any space like to have any other hobbies, like, or like any other aspect of filmmaking? Because it's like, it seems like this is like an all-encompassing thing to just be a musician and compose and make stuff for a living also. Like, can you be a filmmaker too on top of that, or is that like too much?
Well, actually, a lot of times we'll have to put our own reels together. So video editing, like, really ties very closely. So oftentimes, if I'm sending something back to the director, like, I'll go to the video editor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Prep something, or so it's not like I spend all my time there, but that's a skill set that translates very, very easily, I would say. I think it's possible. I mean, there are people who do it. I mean, you heard Michael Giacchino, the Star Trek, he wrote...
yeah, he's amazing.
He wrote all that big stuff. And then he also directed
Ratatouille.
Werewolf by Night, Marvel, big, short, I think it's like 30 minutes long, something like that, on Disney Plus. Like, he's a big name composer, and he did a directorial debut. Like,
Oh.
it happens. People can do it, yeah.
I see that there's so many similarities, director and composer, because of, like you said, the editing and the dramatic
Wrangling.
storytelling visually, but also with sound and it's,
Yeah.
I get that.
Well, and you were mentioning earlier about the business of there's a question.
Oh, two? Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That's a great question,
Yeah.
because that's always the challenge. So I do a lot of audio design for my projects as well. And it's like, okay, is this where you just let the ambience and just the audio, the audio design, just let it go? And forget, you don't want any music, right? And the fact that there is no music in this beat, when it was so musical up into this moment, makes it really special and important. And yeah, you do. And I try, like, I hear this all the time, oh, we composed a score and we decided to just let the explosive sound effects just cover it. We dump the score.
Yeah.
I've never had that luxury. Like, I don't waste. I don't shoot pages I don't need. I don't cut scenes out of my film because I wanted to cut them out before we shot them because they're so damn expensive. But that is not unusual, where you sort of, it's interesting if you ever, because I love this stuff, get into the behind-the-scenes audio mixing of the Lord of the Rings films. And they built their own surround studio thingy in New Zealand, and they've got that amazing Howard score, and they've got, of course, the giant, whatever they are, the billions of orcs and elephants and explosions and stuff. It's like, okay, so it's the push-pull, right? You only have so much bandwidth. When am I going to just drop all that and just let the music play with nothing? Or when am I going to sneak it out? Or when I'm going to just take the music out and let the... Yeah, it's a huge part. And that's the thing, it's a conversation you want to have with your composer, too. It's like, no, this is a quiet moment. This is where the music's going to have it. And this is like, dude, I don't need music here. Trust me, all the screaming and shooting and running and jumping is going to cover it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely part of a whole
No, I think
process.
you really got to communicate, because if you've ever heard a dialogue edit, just the effects edit, dialogue with footsteps and Foley and stuff, like straight through the film, no music, no nothing. There is wall-to-wall sound, little door flicks, little wind gusts. Like, a good sound designer is going through there and they are making everything literal first, And honestly, that for me is the best to work off of. If I get a clean dialogue and Foley edit before, so I know like what things actually sound like. And then you decide, okay, well, the music should be higher than the footsteps here, right? Or if we're going to add an actual sound effect that you don't literally see, right? So you go back and forth. I mean, if it's a crunch time, like if I've got a week to do something, I might not be able to talk to the sound designer. I might not get a Foley or a dialogue edit in advance. I might just be writing my score and hope that it kind of works at the end. Because nothing's worse, I think, than just having your music turned down. You know, I'd like to write in such a way that it fades itself out, or if it stops in an appropriate spot because we communicated in advance and it makes sense to have the music go out there, but to have it just like turned down or have someone's sound effect turned down, like that sucks for them too, because those explosion sounds and things like that, they can take hours to put
Or
together.
just the subtlety of footsteps in an empty room waiting for this thing to happen. And that
Yeah, yeah.
guy sat there and sunk up every footstep, every tap, every little smack and bubblegum chew. And he puts in his score, and I got to get rid of all of it.
Yeah, very.
Because all I needed was the one line in his score.
Yeah. Actually, bringing back to the Lord of the Rings, if you see the behind the scenes of how they did those orc chants, they rented out
Oh, yeah.
or maybe they went to a soccer game with a full stadium, 100,000
Yeah.
people or whatever, and they just like put the words up on the
orc words.
Yeah, the scoreboard, and they said, "All right, everybody, say it together," and you watch.
Like you're an orc army.
Oh my God, it was so cool.
It is
Watch
amazing.
back and
It's
forth.
goosebumps. Start stomping, and the whole stadium is like
Yeah.
this orc horde in between game beats. And so you get all that beautiful, natural, reflective
Yeah.
stadium sound and all the serendipity
A lot
of
of
people
different
shouting over each
voices,
other.
yeah, absolutely.
And it's crazy how effective it is.
I was just scrolling through Instagram today, and there was like a post where it was like somebody who was working on the original Star Wars and how they came up with the lightsaber sound.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it was just an electrical humming sound, and they comboed it with another electrical hum. And then they just had it going on a speaker, and then they had another guy that had like a stick, you know, a stick microphone, and then just emulated the sword battle, and then the Doppler effect created the wow, wow, wow,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's
yeah.
really just like that the whole time. So that was interesting. I never thought about how they put all that together, but, oh, we have a question? Yes?
Hoping to perhaps emulate that stadium situation on a microcosmic level someday. How would you even go about, trying to recreate that? What kind of equipment would you, what kind of
Oh,
would you use?
that's a good question.
Something like that.
I'll try. So you're going to need to find the ambience first. So there are some reverb plugins that actually have someone that went to a stadium and captured the reverb for that particular venue. And then you can find 10 of your friends and record them multiple times and layer it on top of one another and maybe pitch down some of them and find some more friends and layer it and keep layering, and eventually you might get kind of close.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But if you were to show up at a stadium with 10,000 people and just try to go for it, you would want like definitely 3 types of mics. One is just like a big, take everything in right up in front of you, right? And you point those in a bunch of different directions. And then you'd get another one that like takes it from both sides, and you get a bunch of different directions. You probably wouldn't really care to get up and close like this for someone's voice, but depending on what it is. So I don't know if that really answers the question as to what stuff you would need, but yeah.
Can you expand on the personal composition process? So what tools do you use for composition? I personally use pencil, paper, and piano.
Oh, sure.
Just curious in terms of what you guys utilize. And also, once you're done with those compositions, how do you go about your recording process? If you use the studios that you utilize and stuff like that.
That's a great question, and props to you. Hopefully, you're accepting our advice for writing. I'd say that pen and paper and a notation program, which is what Finale is, where you actually like plug in the sheet music, right? That is few and far between when I'm actually scoring a picture, right? I might do that after the fact if I want to come up with a score and make it look nice. But when I'm writing the score, I am in a digital audio workstation. Personally, I use Cubase. I know Andrew said he was using Logic. And I'm writing MIDI, like as I'm writing it, and I'm focusing on the sound first. So it's a convincing mock-up, it's what we call it, as I'm writing it, of like synthetic fake orchestra sounds, right? If there's a budget to record live players, which is the ultimate question, then I would either do it myself and go back to Finale, or I use Dorico, and I would crank out sheet music and send it off to get recorded. If there's a bigger budget, I would send someone else to crank out the sheet music, but it kind of depends on what you expect to do.
Finale, I agree with Finale. And is this Sibelius?
Yeah, Sibelius.
Sibelius
is the
is
other one.
pretty good. It depends on, but I like both. I think Finale is more. Is it more industry standard, perhaps? Would you say?
I mean, I would say that it's industry standard is such like a nowadays, like it used to be Pro Tools was the industry standard for audio recording, but that was really only because Avid, the company that created Pro Tools, built all of the giant consoles in the studios. So like if you wanted to record music, you literally had to use their stuff. So everyone's like, oh well, that's the standard. Nowadays, like anyone could do GarageBand, we talked about, Logic, Cubase, they
Ableton. Love
Ableton,
Ableton.
yeah, they all do the same thing.
Super easy.
So as far as industry standard, man, if you send the director a WAV file, like that's the industry standard.
I like that. That's a good answer. Yeah. So there's nothing like that anymore. Yeah, you're right. Times change. But not sure have we changed? Okay.
Yeah, right.
Like I'm not sure I've changed with the times, but times change. No, but I was going to say like I think it's healthy what I've done sometimes when I've been, because of course I think everybody's been stuck sometimes, even though it's the crunch and like, okay, you have a week and you're expected to deliver the score. I have turned away from everything, picked up the guitar and just literally jam it that way and be like, oh, nice melody. And then, so sometimes you just got to do something else, be in a different room or place, pick up some instrument if you can, or just don't think about that, do something else. And like I think that's very any creative process probably, because I do get a lot of questions like, how do you not get stuck? And I say that's my just you will be stuck at some point. Don't think too much about it, do something else and it will happen. But I'm a very big fan of like trying on something else, like piano, whatever, the little, what do you call it, little thing that we talked about, ukulele, you know, whatever, the flutes,
Different
you know.
instruments. Yeah, sometimes you get stuck, like, patching it, you're changing the quality of the sound. I mean, the melody is, like, good, and you're just trying on different instruments.
I think if you have a long feature, like if you're writing 40 minutes of music, you're probably less likely to feel stuck because you've got so much to do and you can always go to another section to work on that, right?
Kind of
I think when you're working on getting that one spot, or like it's a 6-minute short and now you only really have like 2.5, 3 minutes of music unless it's wall to wall, and it's like, all right, well I already wrote all the stuff, how do I make it better? Now we're tweaking the sound, how do I make it sound better? Because you can spend forever making it sound better without like making it more musical. I'm talking from like a production value, like sonically, not musically.
Sound-wise.
Yeah, exactly.
You mean like mixing and...
Yeah, exactly. Like the
and-
mix can sound phenomenal, but if you're not like saying anything, or if you're saying the wrong stuff that doesn't match with what the director wants to have go over the picture, right? Because you can have it can be great music that doesn't fit, and you're just like, well, that's stupid. Like,
but I think like it's also a balance of. I remember thinking I can't deliver it being like, oh, you know what? I'll mix it later, because like nobody will. Today, I think most. Well, now I'm talking not so much about film, by the way. It's more companies, ad companies, and others. They're business people, so they're thinking like, we want to hear it the way we can't picture anything. When you say that, I don't know what you're talking about.
You got to give them a finished product.
Yeah, 100%.
They need to almost like that's why demos today.
It's not going to sound like that, is it?
no, right.
I mean, you're kidding, right? Like, oh no, no, but like, it's sort of. I think demos today, and I hear colleagues and friends. I'm like, wow, like what a pour on the floor, too. It's like I'm like, so that's the finish. No, it's just a demo. Oh, no pressure. Like, I feel like, wow. So today, especially, I'm not sure whether because the industry changed, like back in the day, maybe A&Rs for like musicians, and now, it's just more like what sells. It's gonna sound like that's on the radio, whatever,
Right.
on TikTok now or whatever it is, and so it's harder now. I think it's like you have to think about the sound too, not
It's
just
like
the
any
composition.
ad.
Yeah, I would
So-
agree.
Any ad that we make, even if we turn it around in a day, you have to deliver a finished ad because they have absolutely no imagination. So, well, those are stock shots with watermarks. Why is there Pond 5 in the middle of everything?
Yeah,
I don't
right.
understand that.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
sorry, let me buy all the footage now, even though we're all going to swap out those shots later. That's fine, I'll just bill you.
No, they will not. Yeah.
It's got to be finished.
Every
Yes.
draft,
Yeah.
every draft has to be production ready. I mean, I heard from someone very prominent, I think it might have been Lauren Balfe or John Powell, the difference between like the mock-up I send the director and the final recorded score, like when you actually hire an orchestra, is like 5%. Like your mock-up has to be, basically you could put that
Yeah.
in the theater, like it's that ready.
But-
Yeah, question.
We, yeah.
That's a great question.
We don't have much time left, but,
You have to choose one of you to pull the number for the raffle.
Oh,
I love that.
you,
Oh, really?
Yeah, you got it.
All right.
you pull it. You're
But do
the,
I
You get
close
this-
my eyes
you get
and
this-
like?
oh, I mean,
the jingle.
Okay.
No one can know what number
Can we
you
get
want.
little like drum thing?
Want to say the numbers?
Okay. And this, I can say it, I should say it?
Yeah, say it.
Okay, that's a lot of digits. 3, 9, 8, 7, 7, 2, 2.
who is it? That one?
If it's not here, we're going right to the next
All
one.
right.
All right.
I don't know, did that- did
There's
I-
only so many.
Do I put it back?
No, don't put it.
No. Okay. Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Maybe I got one. I
Oh,
don't know. Did I get one?
No, you guys can.
Okay, great, good.
All right, so it's 3, 9, 8, 7, 7, 1, 9.
Okay, accent.
Yeah, I just want to listen to you read numbers now.
Yeah, right.
You do a good job.
Do another one.
You can do YouTube
Hello,
videos.
welcome to.
No, I used to do a lot
Like
of those.
sleep videos at night,
Yeah,
just
right.
read numbers.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for coming. A lot of valuable information. It was a very exciting discussion. So thank you for coming to our panel.
All right.
DC Shorts.
Thank you for tolerating us.
Thank you.
We should almost have like a top, like,
Wait, before you
summary thing.
Yeah,
Sorry,
right.
You, sir?
Oh. I didn't think anyone would care. DeweyTron, at DeweyTron, anything DeweyTron, DEWEYTRON, like a robot.
If you want to follow our latest feature on Facebook, go to Ghost Planet Movie. So it's Facebook/Ghost Planet Movie. And you'll find all more than you want to know.
Ghost Planet movie.
Alex Hummingson, just anywhere.
So I go by WOGAMAN Music. It's like spelling yoga music, but with a W. You should find that pretty much anywhere.
Andrew Stainer on Facebook.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good fun.
And if we have a second, I can answer your question
Yeah, yeah.
about the orchestra. Money, first of all. Budget is huge on that, and you got to decide in advance, all right, are you going to have a separate recording budget, or are you just going to pay the composer extra and he's going to, or he or she or they are going to record and do that. And then I would say, like, yeah, those Eastern European orchestras, like, they're very cost friendly, I would say.
Bulgaria, like Romania,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Budapest, yeah, right.
Yeah.
And they sound good.
Have you done this?
They sound really good.
I refuse to comment on the grounds. No,
No.
but like.
I signed in India. Can't,
No,
can't
but
talk about
yeah,
it.
right. Sorry, yeah. No, but no, yes. I've been a little bit like, it's been very, very mixed. I remember I just used a string quartet, like friends in England, for
Yeah.
something like, hey guys, I got this. Can you like just layer so that it sounds like you're like
Sometimes that's what you gotta
50
do, for
people?
sure.
They're like, sure,
Yeah.
darling, yes.
Because let's say
So,
you do
yeah, everything
record.
is possible if, with the right people.
Yeah,
And-
yeah, I would agree. Like if you wanted that full orchestra sound, like not pieced together, but like a full orchestra sound, you're talking a 3-hour session to record about 5 minutes of music, and you're talking anywhere from, $60,000 to $100,000 a day. If you're doing it in America at the Union, like in LA, right? Now it's a lot less if you go somewhere like Budapest and things like that, but some would say that the quality suffers. Others would not say that. So it really depends on who you ask. But yeah, it's going to be a huge price difference.